Nalia, how was your summer break?
Girl, I have been traveling a bunch. I'm gaining weight. I'm like in love. I'm meeting all these people. Things are good, but somehow I'm very stressed. How are you?
My summer break has been good. Have been jumping into some new opportunities here. Very busy, but busy is good. I'm loving life right now. I'm definitely on a high. So, where did you travel to?
I went to Florida, and then next week I'm going to Ohio. By the way, a ticket to Ohio right now costs $1,000. Fucking ill. I'm going to Denver for Fourth of July. I'm going to Palm Springs like the next month. I mean, it's just like a lot of stuff happening, and just like meeting a lot of people. There's a lot of people flying in. Like it's crazy because it's like over 100 degrees in Phoenix right now, and I'm like constantly busy and outside. So things are really crazy. Also, I have to ask the question: did you get a boob job, bitch?
No, I'm just actually wearing a bra this time. So,
The girls look good.
thank you. Thank you. So quick question. With it being over 100 degrees, what are you using for setting spray?
I use the one size setting spray because that's the one that's like, it does all the like water tests and stuff like that. And you could like rub on your face and it won't take the makeup off. So that one's really important. And just like setting your face with the powder is pretty important right now, too. A lot of people avoid powders because they don't want to look cakey and stuff like that. But bitch, this is the time to really make sure that shit is dry and then stuck in place.
Yeah, I agree. When I went to South America, I was using the all nighter.
That is like the holy grail.
Yeah, that one's a classic. That one's really good, but I'll have to give your recommendation a try. And definitely second the powder, major key. Um, so before we get into our segments, one other thing I wanted to share. I went on a date, and you know how we were talking about icks a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So my serious ick was him being, uh, lack of a better term, just an asshole. So not having any chivalry, and not, holding the door open. I gave a very specific example of waiting for the lady to take the first bite when you two are sitting down at dinner. Let me tell you, this man was a perfect gentleman.
That is fucking rare. Good for you.
Yeah, so it's like 10%. So like 1 out of 10 guys I think is still on the chivalry train. Do you think that's a good percentage? Do you think it's lower, higher?
I want to hope it's lower. I mean, I want to hope it's higher, but yeah, that's pretty much what I experience. I think at this point, like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of men are not adequate partners. It's like why we're seeing so many women online on TikTok and stuff like that discuss just being single perpetually and being happy that way. So if you have a gentleman, that's great. But of course, I got to remind everybody like it's relatively easy for somebody to behave in the first couple of months of dating somebody. So if they're not even behaved on date one, like no second shot.
What do you think about this stat? By 2030, 40% of women will be single.
Um, I think it is a good thing because I think it's going to cause a reckoning for a lot of men, especially in America, especially in the West, because right now women have access to resources. Women are more educated than men are. They're starting to make more money than men. In my friend group, I know several women that are like out earning their husbands and boyfriends by a lot. So men have to bring something other to the table than just being the person who provides. Because the reason that men have been able to provide for so long is they have artificially kept women from having resources and having to go through them for resources. So I think there's going to be a cultural reckoning for men. And so I want that reckoning to happen. I just hope it's not like a bloody revolution. I hope it's like a peaceful, we get like good male influencers out there teaching men how to be good partners.
So here's the thing. I don't think there's going to be a reckoning for men. because we're going to have the rise of AI companions. We're only like 1 or 2 years away from that. So, what incentive do they have to treat women well when it's Westworld out there?
Well, um, to what extent is video games more satisfying than human to human interaction? I think for a sizable chunk of people, that's those are great interactions. Having an internet life is great, but for a lot of people, it isn't. So I think with the AI companionship rise, I think we'll see something similar where like the bottom tier of men are interfacing with those companions a lot and using those companions to gratify whatever emotional needs that they have. But I don't think it's going to be good enough for a lot of people.
Maybe not at first, but just like we've seen GPT 2 to 4.0, like it's going to get good really quick.
We're like rapidly moving into a time where it's like frictionless pleasure for all of us. And I agree, it's going to get good quick. Is it going to be good for us ultimately? At that, I don't know. I watched this YouTube video about a woman who visited a robot brothel, and she like did the damn thing with like a robot with AI integrated into it. And she was talking about how uh, she could see why this place of business was popular, but how it still has this like deeply ungratifying feeling. Like I have a feeling that once AI gets to the point where resources are not scarce, and we like can get our every need taken care of, I think a lot of people will get super depressed and suicidal.
Quick sidebar. Did you see that on Modern Wisdom? That was an episode like a few months ago. That researcher, she was on there.
No.
I forget her name, but that was a fascinating episode.
Oh wait, is Modern Wisdom Chris Williamson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like his podcast. Yeah, I did see that. So we watched the same thing.
Yeah, I forget the researcher's name, but she was doing great work with that, with the AI companionship and going to the brothel, and it was really interesting to get her take, like because she has a partner too, and she has to do all this research.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, she just seems like a normal, cool woman or whatever. Do you watch all of the Chris Williamson like episodes and podcasts? Like, are you like a big fan of that show, or do you just like watch it when somebody interesting comes on, or what's your relationship with it?
I would say I probably listened to maybe 70% of the episodes. So it's like, it's in my subscribe feed on Spotify. So I'd say I'm a regular listener, at least like once every week, week and a half.
I am. I only listen when somebody interesting is on, somebody I know or somebody who I love, and I like him, and I think he's like fair. I think he's like a reformed Menonist, if I had to guess, which I like. I think we need to see more of those. And his content on Instagram, I think, is great because it's like the best clips, and it's like I like the slides that he does with like the little tidbits that he takes away from his interviews. I think those are cool.
The thing that I respect most about Chris is that he asks the most thoughtful questions out of like pretty much any podcaster out there.
The thing I most respect about him is that he's hot as fuck.
The accent, and I mean Jim Bro too. What I don't like about these red pill podcasts though, they can't keep trans women out their mouth. Like every single episode they bring up trans women.
Yeah, I agree, and it's annoying. And to Chris's credit, when he does bring it up, he always frames it like this is this conversation is taking up way too much of our damn time. Like, why are we talking about it so much? Which I agree. I'm like, this is like we all know this is a manufactured culture war for Republicans to win in 2024. Like, it's just a part of that plan. And it gets clicks and stuff like that. But at some point, I'm like, when is the fatigue gonna set in? Like, we got to get tired of talking about this soon. Like, it's so annoying.
Yeah, millennials and Gen Z do not care about that. That's not even close to the number one issue. I'm not sure that even makes the top 10.
No, no.
Housing, inflation, immigration, these are all the issues of 2024, not trans people. Um, what would Chris say about Eden the doll getting her ribs removed.
Holy shit. Okay, first and foremost, I like Eden. I think she's cool, you know, good content, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I align with her on a lot of shit. Beautiful girl, all of that stuff. But I was looking at my Instagram this morning and I was like, what is going on? She wrote a note on her story, and the note was like, um, you know, I first of all, okay, so some context. She went down to Mexico to get two of her ribs removed. Okay, the woman has a like admirable, like crazy body. Like I mean, crazy good. I'm like she has like a Barbie doll body, like hips to waist ratio is crazy. So clearly she wanted to exacerbate it. She does OnlyFans, I get it, you know, some marketing or whatever. But she got her ribs removed. She brought them to the US, which is probably not legal. I don't know. And she wrote a wrote a story where she's talking about how she left her ribs on top of her like implant, her boob implant on top of a bar cart, and either her mama or her like boyfriend threw the ribs away, and she's crying and distraught over it.
So what I have to say to that is don't risk something that you have and need for something that you don't have and don't need.
I think that's a good advice.
I like kind of feel bad saying that. Like I want to have a lot of empathy in this situation. And why I feel bad is because like I'm feeling like an alt right, like Trump voter saying like, "Oh, you have a mental illness. Like, why do you need to transition? You're sick. Like, why do you need to get your ribs removed?" I feel like the benefit does not outweigh the risk in this situation. And that's exactly something that like a Trump supporter would say. But like I genuinely don't know why in this situation, other than like her dysphoria is really bad. And that's why I want to have a lot of empathy. But this does seem like a bit of a ridiculous situation.
Trans girls, you need to understand the difference between gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia. Gender dysphoria is when you're trying to get your body to align with your gender so you can pass in society, so you can feel comfortable when you're in public, so you can feel invisible in the good way when you are around different people, so you don't get the bullets that are discrimination. You don't want to catch those stray bullets. However, a lot of us are also dealing with body dysmorphia, and body dysmorphia is a distorted perception you have of your body not feeling good enough. And what the symptoms of body dysmorphia often does, especially to trans women, is it makes us chase these cartoonish body types. For example, size E breast, not natural, not healthy. But what I notice is when transgender women and AGPs start to transition, what they do is they get fucking humongous tits. Now, how does that help them? It makes them feel sexy, I guess, but a lot of people don't find that sexy. They find it to be cartoonish. It looks crazy. And a lot of times there are complications with the big breasts. And I think when you like alter your body to the point where it looks like a fucking cartoon, you got to be careful. It is extremely dangerous. And I think a lot of trans girls do that. And I think they need to think twice when they're thinking about getting their body stuff done or their face stuff done. What is a need? What is a want? What is my gender dysphoria? And what is dysmorphia? Dysmorphia is something that really, really needs to be treated psychologically, in my opinion.
Yeah, the benefit risk analysis in this situation is way off. Like your ribs do protect your lungs. Like we all know this, right? Like this is a very dangerous thing to do to pull a Marilyn Manson.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you measure if doing that actually helps you in whatever goal that you have? So if the goal is I want to get more OnlyFans subscribers by having this like sensational body, I mean, we'll see if that happens, I guess. If it's I want to feel more feminine, it's like, well, I mean, you're as beautiful and feminine as it could be, I don't know if there's going to be much marginal return on doing something like that. And hopefully, like, her health, she's in good health, and whatever. But whatever people want to do with their body, that's fine. But I just want everybody who's listening to, when they're thinking about what they're going to do with their body, it's okay to want to look sexy and hot and all of those things, but just remember there is a difference. If you have dysmorphia to the point where people around you are starting to comment on you looking cartoonish, you got to be careful.
That's an extreme barometer though. Like you need to be able to catch it before that.
How do you?
Uh, I don't know, other than like staying in the moment and like I don't I guess like keeping just constant tabs on where you are. Like she said before that like she's done so much of V12 that she can't get any skinnier. I would say that that's like a pretty good sign before like you're getting absolutely cartoonish. Like you need to be aware of what you're doing and what your actions actually are.
Yeah, I would say, like, you got to make sure that you're going to therapy and make sure you're like working on your self-worth issues. Everybody has them. I think those help. And then also, like, you know, your support system should be giving you the right advice. So if you have a boyfriend or if you have friends, for me, as I go through my plastic surgery journey, I consult with the people that I'm closest with because they can give me a an appraisal, an accurate appraisal of what it is that I want to do and at what point that it becomes crazy. So, for example, when I was starting to consult on my boob job, I went to Danny because she had a boob job. To me, she looks great. And, I talked to her about, well, what are the ins and outs? I went to my cisgender friends and be like, okay, for my frame, what do you think would actually look good? I want to look sexy, but I still want to look I wouldn't say natural necessarily. I still want to look proportional. I still want to enter a room and feel like a normal person. And, my tribe was able to push me away from things that are extreme. So, cultivate those people around you that are not going to always tell you what you want to hear.
Definitely you're a product of your environment, so you need to keep good company. Um all right. Yeah, if you see our stories, they're nuts. They're insane. And like the pictures of the ribs too.
I just want to read to you what her story said this morning. I just found out that someone, my mom or my boyfriend, maybe even me, mistook my ribs, my literal bones I brought back from Mexico after my surgery, as trash and threw them away. I can't begin to express my anger and disappointment. I don't really know how to react. I know they shouldn't have given them to me in the first place, but I legit smuggled them in the country, and all that work and pain I've been through just for them to end up in the fucking garbage. They are irreplaceable, my literal bones. I will never get back. I don't know how to process this. I'm in tears. I feel like I did all of that for nothing. I believe this happened. I want to cry. I want to scream. And I can't be mad at anyone but myself for not keeping them in a safer spot during my recovery. I'm like, sorry, girl. Like, I feel bad.
What are you going to do with your bones? Like keep them in a shoebox underneath your bed?
I don't know, girl. I don't know. I feel bad, but the entire thing is like bananas.
A very unique situation indeed. Um, okay, so when we were reviewing the outline before the show, we were looking at Lily Gaddis, and you don't know who Lily Gaddis is. You've been traveling a lot, so you have not seen this on TikTok. Um, so why don't you pull up clip one for us?
Is the story just took a turn that is so ironic it feels like a Greek tragedy. And I don't mean that in the sense that it is tragic. It feels like a morality play. It feels like there is karma. So this woman came on here and was openly racist. She said the N-word, then she doubled down on it. She got fired from her job. Naturally, she has a bunch of interviews lined up with right-wing talk show hosts. She wants to be the next Lauren Southern or Ann Coulter. But there's a problem with her plan. Some of the people who would typically be her audience, some of the neo-Nazis on Twitter, some of the white nationalists, don't think that she's white enough. Despite her ruining her life to become the next blue-eyed, blonde-haired, white spokeswoman for racism, they're questioning her qualifications to be racist. They are doing phrenology on her face. And it reminds me of that Francesca Ramsey song about the woman who didn't think the leopards would eat her face when she voted for the leopards eating people's faces parties. The leopards are eating her face right now. They're accusing her of being a psyop. They dug up her original surname. And despite her doubling down on her racism and anti-Semitism, despite her insisting that she's a Southern Baptist, always has been, these allegations are probably going to follow her. They're probably going to continue thinking that she's a psyop, and that might interfere with her plan to join one of these radio talk shows. Maybe it won't. It probably won't. But I don't think she expected this. I don't think she expected to face any degree of discrimination from the races she wanted to associate with.
Love to see it.
So, for more context, video is now removed, but Lily, not our favorite Lily Tino, Lily Gaddis, made a video. She's like a Tradwife influencer, which, by the way, is a psyop. We'll get into that. But she was making this video of just like making food, and she says the N-word. It's like a bigot's greatest hits, right? So she's being blatantly racist, doubling down on our racism, talking about immigration, anti-Semitic, using every single slur in the book. So like she's really trying to ham it up to these right-wing, talk shows and podcasts and the media landscape in general. These Aryan accounts on Twitter or TikTok or whatever, they are calling her Jewish, and they're calling her out for being Jewish and a psyop, and saying that she's an industry plant and that she's not really like this. Like, you can't, Larry David couldn't write this any better.
Yeah, and I hope she's getting cyberbullied, to be honest with you. Like, how dare you come on there and purposefully use words that are associated with so much pain in this country, so much death. This is exactly what happens to people when they don't learn that they are being used as a tool to advance white supremacy, racism. It is really sad, and we see this happening all the time. But I wish it was more thorough, because what I notice is that the moderate right does embrace these types of figures. So what my hope is she's getting checked real hard with what she was trying to do, and that rejection is enough to discourage her. But when it comes to, the moderate right, Blair White is half Latina. She's trans, embraced. Candace Owens, Black conservative, embraced. Omarosa, Black conservative, former Black conservative, embraced. Tim Scott, Black conservative, embraced. Ben Shapiro, Jewish conservative, embraced. However, with all of those people, they have to face some significant backlash whenever they do something that pisses off the forces that are orchestrating them to help these dark energies on the right. So there's a cost to all of this, but it just isn't enough to keep all of the grifters basically from doing what they're doing.
So let me give a little counterpoint to that. I don't think embraced is the right word for half that group. I think tolerated is a more appropriate word. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. And what a lot of them don't understand is ultimately when they're done with us, they always come for them. Like, I am watching what this country is trying to do with abortion rights, and I'm seeing a lot of moderate right women being outraged over this. And it's like, what did you think was going to happen? All of this is really about controlling and perpetuating the patriarchy. We've been saying this for forever. We've been saying this for the last 100 years. It's all about uplifting the current power structure. And if you don't like how that looks and you're not a part of it, you will get screwed over in this process by shilling for these people.
When something is so egregious like this and it's clearly attention seeking behavior, why do people pay attention to it on social media when people go full mask off like this? It's like a 10-car pileup on the other side of the highway and you can't look away. But why are people giving this attention?
People feel like politics are like sports. They feel like this is my team, this is the other team. I love my team, I hate the other team, and I will do anything if it means making the other team look bad. Meanwhile, everybody's looking like a damn fool because we are destroying our country and our society by behaving like that. I don't operate to screw over conservative people. I don't do anything or say anything to try to make them feel bad or try to attack them. I don't give a shit. I'm just trying to live my life and try to make this place a better place than it was yesterday. And I think there are a lot of people on the right that are like that too. But a lot of this spiteful behavior is coming from a petty, stupid, tribal place.
We've gotten to a point where we can't sit down and have nuanced conversations whatsoever. And that's a little disappointing to me as someone who like really does like to learn new things and like really challenge myself. Black and white thinking is a cop out and it's easy thinking and it doesn't allow you to think deep with something so nuanced. Like 99% of the issues out there.
Yeah, it's also not strategic. Like ultimately, like there is no utopia, there is no savior. Like life is a game, and if you're playing like Monopoly, you are making certain moves to avoid pitfalls, to get more houses, to get more property. Like you have to think about advancing our cause in that capacity as well. You know, like, or if you're like living with your roommate and you want to have a good experience, then you want to be nice, you want to be encouraging, but you also want to be assertive. It's the same sort of thing with, transgender politics. Like we are living with cisgender straight people, whether we want to be or not. We're living with religious people, whether we want to be or not. So we have to pick our fights really effectively, but we also have to make an effort to connect to people.
So last point on this, Tradwives. That has to be a psyop, right? Like, I don't understand how anyone would want to go back to like Little Women.
Yeah. So first and foremost, when Danny says psyops, that stands for psychological operations, and it's basically when the government or some other entity is like planting cultural figures to like influence the mood of certain events. So we've put a lot of psyops in other countries to influence those events, and people use that phrase kind of like flippantly or just like jokingly sometimes. I'm explaining this because I heard the phrase like literally over the last 2 months, and I literally asked my boyfriend what it was. So I'm just putting it out there for the other trans girls. I think there's truth to it. I think that people do prop up, influencers and figures like that, again, to brainwash women especially. But I also think there's like a big appetite for that sort of content. I look at how many times when you go on TikTok do you see, are you in your feminine energy? Are you in your masculine energy? Like bullshit like that. Or black cat girl, golden retriever boy. Just all of these like references that reinforce the patriarchy in nice, magical, coded language. Like there is definitely an appetite for that type of content. So I think she could be a psyop. I think she is stupid. And at the same time, like we wouldn't care about the content if we didn't care. Clearly, people care.
Okay, so someone who is not a psyop, Pearl, and you made a video about this probably like a month ago, like 6 weeks ago, and like I think she genuinely wants to be a Tradwife, but it's ironic because she's platforming that opinion where like if she was actually a Tradwife, she wouldn't be able to platform that opinion. Quite the paradox.
Yeah, I mean, as per usual, these people are hypocrites. They're complete hypocrites. Like, she is a career woman. She is aggressive and going after what she wants. She's debating with men. She's masculine and dry in the face. Like, she is doing all of the things that you're not supposed to do as a conservative, traditional woman. And she's completely throwing like other women under the bus. She's throwing a lot of good men under the bus. Like, I can't with her, and it brings me so much pleasure that she's never gonna get picked unless it's by a woman, and I think that is a possibility. So, and by the way, her mom is a fucking like, what is it? She's like a really successful woman in business. I don't know if she's a physicist. I know Harrison Butler's mom is a physicist, but her mom is a powerful businesswoman. So, and she has admitted on interviews that her mom does not like the stuff that she says online. How could you?
So, for a segue, how we get ahead of these trolls in life. If you want to be successful, we are going to share a few tips. And this main segment is advice on how to get ahead of 99% of people in life. So we each have 3 tips, some book recommendations, some honorable mentions. So why don't you go ahead and share your first one? I'm very curious to hear what you have to say because, I mean, you are a very successful businesswoman.
Yeah, I wanted to, before I even shared any of this, I want to explain to people, why they should even consider listening to me and Danny. Because when you get on the internet and you go into trans discourse, you see like a lot of different types of people, and you never know who you can trust. Me and Danny are both transgender women in our 30s. We've had our surgeries. We have a wonderful group of friends. I'm in a relationship right now. I have been successful in a career in finance without having to rely on being LGBTQ off of my merit alone. And I started making 6 figures before I turned 30 years old. And that's how I am fueling my life. I manage a bunch of people and I work in a conservative industry and people like me, but I don't have to change my stripes. I'm very much a progressive, a moderate, whatever you want to call me. But I'm happy. I'm doing well. And, I never had to get to the point where I needed to like suffer or cry about not getting surgeries or do sex work if I didn't want to do that sort of thing. No judgment to anybody who does, but me and Danny have maneuvered through life in a very, very normal way, and I know that there are a lot of trans girls that do not think it's possible for them. It is possible for you, and it's possible whether you live in Boston like Danny does, or you live in Phoenix like me, or you're from Ohio like me. Like, it is possible for you. We are living in the best possible time to be trans, even despite all of the stuff in the news. And so, what we're sharing here is with the intention of helping you get to that place if you want to get to that place, or if you have been to that place already. I would love to hear your commentary on how you got there. So, to answer Danny's question, my biggest key to success is constant self education. Self education is the tool that I use to get myself from making a starting salary in sales to making 6 figures and above. Because when I got into the business world, I read books on how to succeed in business. The best advice I got was look for a gap in the business and fill that gap by providing solutions. And so I started doing that. And I taught myself using my small company how to code in JavaScript. And so all of a sudden you have this like 24-year-old that does not have a coding background in marketing that's like developing all of this JavaScript coding and like impressing the fuck out of my superiors. That was possible because I maintain at least 30 minutes a day of self-education, learning hard skills. And so my biggest advice and my first piece of advice is constantly educate yourself, and educate yourself in a way that other people are going to find valuable.
What's your favorite platform for self education, for hard skills, particularly?
So my starter platform and the one that I would recommend for all trans girls is LinkedIn. And the reason why I would recommend that is it gives you the ability to network, which is very important. But there is LinkedIn Learning on that platform. And LinkedIn Learning is a library of different online courses, very similar to Udemy or Coursera, but you're paying $30 a month for that platform and you get all of the courses. You can look up the courses on LinkedIn Learning and find them on Udemy, and they'll cost you anywhere from $10 to $100 depending on the course. You might as well just have a subscription and use LinkedIn Learning to learn hard skills, and it has soft skills. The courses are current and they're super great. And again, beyond that, you can reach out to recruiters. You can get preferential treatment when you're applying to jobs. It's a great platform. It's only about $30 a month.
If you want to master LinkedIn too, I'm going to give you the recommendation of following Justin Welsh, who's a LinkedIn influencer. He's really big on Twitter, X, so give him a follow. He's going to give you great tips for success on LinkedIn and how to network properly and the whole ecosystem of LinkedIn. He's great. Coursera is also a really good one. You mentioned Udemy, and then EDXCU, I think, is another one. So all those will be good. Okay, so my first one is mindset. So one of my favorite quotes, and I think this is probably the most important lesson that I've learned over the past year, is you can't stop the waves, but you can always learn to surf. Life is suffering. There's no way around that. And when your mindset is that hardship is inherently baked into the process and it is a guarantee, it is going to make things a lot easier for you. And you're going to be able to prepare a lot more for that. It's like inoculating yourself to hardship, right? So we've talked about this before where you're going to challenge yourself little by little. And when you're constantly challenging yourself, you're going to build tenacity and give yourself just strength in the face of adversity. So having that mindset, very good and really important. It's the journey versus the destination. Focus on the journey. That's going to make things a lot easier for you. I have a thought here from a book that I was recently reading, Anti-Fragile. And Taleb says in the book, when you try to engineer social situations or anything for that matter in nature, chaos and catastrophe follow. Removing volatility is an illusion and leads to black swan events. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a good book, and I know you've been reading it, and so that's like definitely on my list. And I think I agree a lot and resonate so much with what you say. I'm somebody who used to take when bad things would happen to me, and I still actually kind of struggle with this. I used to take it personally, like the universe was against me or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, life is always going to challenge you, and you have to be anti-fragile. And I really love the learning how to surf metaphor. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I was going through a really, really tough time recently. Felt like fucking shark was taking a bite out of my surfboard multiple times, and I'm just trying to swim to shore. But in the back of my mind, knowing that good times will eventually show up, that did keep me going. And in the face of desperation and rock bottom, this is the most important mindset to have. I forget where I heard this, but suffering, you can't live life without suffering, because man is the sculptor and the marble at the same time. I thought that was a really good one. And then just the last thought on this, consistency is queen. Nothing beats compounding, right? So if like you do 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, right? Like you can do that in your head pretty quick, but then like 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, like you're in finance, you know about compounding. Like the when you look at it on paper, it doesn't seem real.
Yeah, it is a truly an amazing force, and like it's only accomplished when you continue to put the effort into your dreams every day, despite how it feels at the moment. Like there's a lot of things that I don't feel like doing, but you sit there and grind because that's in alignment with your big goals. Life is not about sitting here and coasting and feeling unlimited pleasure. That's not what it's about. And that, I think that's what a lot of people want it to be about. It's not about that. It would be boring if it was that. Life is about finding what you truly want out of it and building towards it. That's what makes people happy ultimately. And I want to echo, Danny did go through a hard time recently. 2023 was one of the hardest years of my life. I was struggling in my personal life, in my career, with my family. And this came after a big high. I like 2021 to 2022. That's when I began my transition. All of this stuff started to happen for me. So when I got like depressed and things started going really badly, it was almost shocking. And I was depressed for over a year. And now my circumstances are turning around in a lot of ways. They're not perfect. There are still things that upset me every day. But if you had told me in my life that I would be at this point where I am now, like 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. So things are not perfect. And there was depression in the midst of all that, but you get through it. You just got to be anti fragile.
Yeah, happiness is reality minus expectations. So I think that's also a really important thing to keep in mind here.
Come on, Confucius, let's go.
When it comes to consistency, you need to keep doing the normal thing when everyone is going crazy around you. And I think that's like the secret to the compounding, right? Just like stay on the track. You can't lose if you don't stop playing the game.
I agree. I agree. And just keep that in mind, everybody. Like, we all know this, but you really have to get to yourself to the point where you're internalizing this message. Like, that's so important.
So I just had one other point with mindset. So something that you always love to talk about is living in the moment. So this is part 2 of mindset here. You only get about 4,000 weeks on Earth if you're lucky. So if you are constantly thinking about the future or thinking about past events, like how many weeks are you actually present out of those 4,000? You need to remain present if you want to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the consequence of your head being in the future, especially when it comes to anxiety, is a lot of your rumination. So if you're worrying about stuff, you're like wasting a lot of energy thinking about outcomes that probably aren't coming true. And what's insidious about that is when the one time where something you worry about excessively does come true, then all of a sudden you feel the need to continue worrying, but you're wasting energy that could be put into building your life right now. And that's where, if you focus on cultivating fulfillment in the current moment, it actually helps your future because you're thinking about all of the things you're wanting to experience, and you're doing the things right now to experience them.
So, how much time do you spend on your phone a day? I just got the Apple notification, like for the weekly averages. I listen to a lot of Spotify, so I think this is one of the reasons. But it was a little over 7 hours a day of screen time.
I the last time I checked mine, I'm going to check right now. I I think we're going to be appalled. Okay, let me see. Um, so screen time. I'm scared. Oh wait. Are you looking at your daily average?
So I get a notification every Sunday about what my screen time was.
Last week's average 10 hours. TikTok and Instagram top.
So what I started doing recently, I started limiting myself. So you can do this through Apple. And I know you can do it through the Instagram app too, but I've been limiting myself um, with my indulgent apps like TikTok and Instagram. And I ask you that question because I have a thread from George Mack, who's one of my favorite follows on X. And his thread is about the kale phone versus the cocaine phone. Okay, so the smartphone paradox. Your phone is a gateway to the world's best knowledge and the world's best distractions. It's having the best teachers, strip clubs, and social clubs in your pocket 24/7. So, society's solution. There are two paths people use to deal with the smartphone paradox. Phone addict, you're glued to the phone constantly. Phoneless Luddite, no access to the best technology of this century so far. You either burn out or miss out. So George came up with a third option, which is the cocaine kale protocol. He has two phones. So his kale phone is full stack serotonin, only notes, Kindle, Uber, maps, and emergency numbers. The cocaine phone is full of dopamine. So it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, can contact anyone. So how does he use these two phones like throughout the day? The kale phone he can check 24/7, but it's so damn vanilla, I don't feel the need to. If I want to procrastinate on it, I must read a book or generate ideas in my notes. Win-win. I get 90% of the upside of having a phone with none of the addiction. For the cocaine phone, he says, I don't check it until 12 p.m. on the weekdays and 2 p.m. on the weekends. Still get the optionality that smartphones and social media produce, but I don't consume it 24/7 until my brain melts. And then finally here he has, what are the impacts? The kale phone resets your baseline. Your cocaine phone feels too intense after 60 minutes per day. You start to crave the kale phone. What do you think about that paradox and solution?
I'm gonna share my intrusive thought first, and then I'll share my real thought. Intrusive thoughts: two phones, two ways for your man to cheat on you. Okay, that was my intrusive thought. Don't ever let a man have two phones. Intrusive thought. Regular thought. I think that's brilliant. I think that is brilliant, and I think that's like a workable solution for most people, because that's basically what an iPad is, and a lot of people have iPads already. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so why wouldn't I transition to having like a basic phone that has like almost zero apps on it, and then use my iPad for the TikTok, Instagram, all of that stuff. And my best friend actually does this. She removed all of the social apps from her phone and she uses her laptop to access things like Instagram. So that way, because she like went on an Instagram diet, but she was missing out on all these social invites that she was getting for her friends. So we're too connected and reliant upon this technology to get rid of it all the way. And so when she put all that stuff on her laptop, then it forces her to be a little bit more intentional. And honestly, like I read this somewhere, it was like how advertisers want us to buy things on our phone because it's so easy to distract us. And by the time somebody's trying to purchase things on a laptop, they're typically much more thoughtful and a lot more like slow with purchases. Like laptop purchases, especially with millennials versus Gen Z, they are like serious purchases. I surveyed a bunch of my friends, millennial and Gen Z, and the millennials said that they all bought their plane tickets on a laptop, and the Gen Z people said that they bought their plane tickets on their phones, which I thought was really interesting.
I would not buy my plane ticket on a phone.
Because you're a fucking millennial, and so am I. I forced myself to buy my plane ticket on my phone for the first time after I heard that stat, because I'm like, I'm not gonna be an old bitch, but it felt fucking wrong.
I heard this terrifying story on Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. The McDonald's app is tracking everything about you and it knows when you're getting paid. So it's feeding you personalized pricing, push notifications. How frightening is that?
Corporations ain't shit, and they just put open an AI into our iPhones, or they're going to integrate that. We're fucking cooked. Like the AI apocalypse is coming, and the first result of that is the people at the top are going to be so much more powerful because they're going to have so much more data. So
What do you do though? Because if you're not using it, you're falling behind. Like ChatGPT would be on my Kale phone. I use that for taking notes constantly because you can save memory in it and it reads it back to you. Do you know how productive that is?
yeah, no, it's there's nothing to do but embrace it. I'm gonna use it, and it's fun to be doom and gloom and stuff like that. But the reality is, we're living in a frictionless society where our every whim can be catered to, and it would do us well not to forget that, because right now anything that I want, like with Amazon, I can order anything I want and it'll be in my doorway like within 24 hours. Like, I'm grateful for that. Like, was there value in living in the 70s and 80s and having to interact with human beings and go to stores and stuff like that to get your shit? Sure. Yeah, life being hard does build character, but I don't give a fuck. I mean, I'm trying to imagine myself transitioning in the 70s. No thanks. Like, I like that I was able to order all my little sissy stuff on Amazon and cross dress at home and be comfortable. And so I'm going to embrace all the AI stuff, but also not excuse myself from participating in politics, or talking about fascism, or all the things that I'm passionate about. That's going to make the world a better place. And also, AI will be weaponized against us, but we can also weaponize AI ourselves. Like, this will be a neutral tool like every other. We're going to all have AI companions that, in my mind, are loyal to us, relatively speaking. That's what I see for the near term future. So I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna have AI agents. Like I've heard the Bumble CEO and the Zoom CEO talk about this, but I've been hearing this on Lex Friedman last year, where you're going to have AI agents doing everything for you. Where, like, if the AI agent goes on Bumble, they're going to be able to date 1,000 people for you and find the right match. And the same with taking notes on a discovery call with a client. So I think we will get a lot more productive. You need a barbell strategy, though, when it comes to the thought process. Be optimistic about the future, but also be paranoid as fuck about everything that can go wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that would put you in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and I think that's the advice that we need to follow. It's not doom and gloom, but keep your eyes open.
Mm. Okay, what is your second point to get ahead of 99% of people?
So my second point is to understand politics, and I want to be very clear when I talk about politics. I'm not saying understand Donald Trump versus Biden, although I think that's helpful too. I'm saying understand power dynamics and social situations and how they work and how to get yourself ahead. I think too many people are coming into their work situation or their friendship situation, and they have goals in their lives, but they're somehow not applying those goals into their social situation. So, for example, I'm somebody who wants to continue transitioning and paying for more surgery. Therefore, I have to make more money. Therefore, what do I do at work to make that happen? I develop stronger relationships. Um, I work harder and let the right people know that I'm working harder. And then I go and ask my boss for a specific raise and what I did to deserve that. Those are social skills. Those relationships are part of amassing a brand and power, even though it's in a small organization. Those things are important when it comes to dating. For example, let's say you're single and you're having a hard time dating, you need to get out there and meet people. So which friends do you have right now where you can hit them up and they'll invite you to somewhere cool where you can meet people? Those relationships all matter in order for you to get what you want out of life. My relationships are not transactional, though. I'm very much fulfilled and enjoying the relationships that I have with people. However, I don't like ignore my goals while I'm participating in those relationships. You can have both. You can have close relationships with your coworkers and friends, but also be operating in a way that's going to help you with more resources. So, understanding the power dynamic, and the number one piece of advice I will give anybody who wants to develop themselves more, read 48 Laws of Power. It is a must read book for anybody who wants to be successful, more successful than the average in this world.
So when it comes to shy people who may not have many friends, what are you recommending that they do? Or like what tools can they use to get out there and make new connections? I think like Meetup would probably be a pretty good app to use, but do you have any other ideas?
Yeah, I think that the best ways to kind of get over that is to look up books that teach um, charisma. I think like go to Amazon, search up the word charisma, and buy those books because they teach you how to read people. They teach you social skills. Consume that content on YouTube, and then for me, you know, everybody knows this pair where like there's two best friends. One of them is an extrovert, one of them is an introvert. That's like a common like trope in a lot of movies and stuff like that. And I think that that's what I would do. I would like work on developing friendships, but then also finding that one friend that you're comfortable with that is a magnetizer, somebody who's going to just bring people around you if you choose to participate. I'm somebody who comes from an extremely introverted family, and that's who I was for my family, and my family benefited because of it. So pick a friend or a few friends that just attract people and just go for the ride.
Awesome. So to piggyback off that, my next point was that you need to learn soft skills with the rise of automation. That is going to be the most important thing the next 5 years, I think. So, storytelling, negotiation, sales, marketing, those are all going to be pivotal. So, one of my favorite books is going to be I just reread this, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Have you read that one?
I haven't.
Definitely recommend it. So he was the lead international hostage negotiator for the FBI. And now he's a consultant for businesses and, Fortune 500 companies when they're doing these business transactions. And it's fascinating, the things that he talks about in the book. So that would be my number one recommendation there for a book in this ecosystem. One of the best places to learn storytelling, I think, TikTok.
I agree because I learned a lot. Like I got better at my marketing job after doing TikTok because you learn how to the hook part of it and to deliver on the hook and stuff like that. And it's a constant journey. Like it's like any skill where like you could fall off and get bad at it. Like I get lazy and fall off all the time, and so it's constantly keeping my shit sharp. And it's short form, so you get rewarded, and the algorithm is such that you get rewarded when you do well quickly, and if you don't do well, you don't. And I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, so I would watch a lot of Kurt Vonnegut, who's like one of the best storytellers of all time. And then I would choose like 3 to 5 storytellers on TikTok and study their content so you can see how they hook you, what they're using for micro hooks, and that will benefit you tremendously. Even though it's going to be on your cocaine phone, it will still help you out.
I can't wait to share that with my boyfriend. We were literally just talking about this. I'm kind of like a tech goddess, and he's kind of like a off the grid type of person. And yeah, that concept is like a game changer. I think he'd love that.
Okay, what's your final point here?
My final point is cultivating joy and not pleasure. So, um, in when throughout my 20s, I partied a lot and I gained a lot of weight. And I remember being in this state of constantly having to diet and never getting the diet right. So, and actually, what started happening is in my mid 20s, I started gaining weight and I couldn't lose it. And I'm telling you, I was constantly doing a diet. And I think that was really frustrating. And then in 2020, the coronavirus pandemic started. And I remember I was starting to wear makeup and transition. And I was so happy throughout the process that I found myself having to rely less on food and partying to make myself happy. And because of that as well, I just naturally shed like 20 pounds and I became like the fittest that I've ever been in my life, at least since high school. And that just happened because I was experiencing so much joy. I had fuel to put into my own dreams. And so when I am having a hard time in life, I remember that I have to work on making myself happy. And yesterday I did that by going to like a cool boutique furniture store that was close to my home just because I wanted to and just because I'm really into interior design right now. And then I went and had sushi with my friends and I didn't overeat. It was just like a really happy moment. Um, and I think everybody needs to remember that it is your birthright to experience joy and happiness every single day, but you have to allow yourself to experience it. You have to pursue it, and you also have to allow yourself to experience it.
Experience is a bitch of a teacher. Like some lessons you really can't understand until you have the experience itself. So it's costly, it's timely, but in the end it is worth it because you gain a completely new perspective on life that you didn't even know it's possible. So I think that's a great point. Um,
Can I ask you something, Danny? Like for you, like what are the things in your life that bring you like genuine joy?
Genuine joy. That's a great question. Besides doing the podcast with you, I would say fitness. My favorite sloth activity is tanning on my deck with an iced coffee and listening to an audiobook. That is like pure bliss for me. Um, Also, traveling. I love to travel and experience new things. What are some of your top?
I'm a foodie, so going out to restaurants and like trying weird things. Like when I go out with people, I want everybody to pick something and then we all share, like do a family style and share the food. So I really like that. Um, One of the things that brings me genuine joy that's like just like I feel like unique to me, and I didn't really embrace it for a long time. I love like horror and like, dark glam, basically, as I would call it. So on Tuesday, I took my friends to the Dragula show. And Dragula is, you have RuPaul's Drag Race, which is a competition reality show for drag queens. Dragula is, imagine Drag Race plus Fear Factor. So they're doing these drag queens are doing all of these. They're like having to eat like so they compete on an aesthetic level and the two like losers of the week have to do something crazy in order to stay, like eat like a bowl of like worms, or like get electrocuted, or like get shot with pellets. Like it's really, really crazy. And so I took my friend to the Dragula show, and it literally, Danny, everybody was dressed up as like monsters and zombies and whatever, and they were like doing their talents. It felt like me and my friend went to hell, and we were watching a like cabaret show that was put on by the devil, and I fucking loved every second of it.
That sounds insane, and like an amazing time.
Yeah, and it's like spooky vibes. I'm like all about the spooky vibes. I love skulls and like creepy stuff. Like that's just something that brings me joy.
I do love skulls too. That is an aesthetic for me. I like quirky, like weird things. I always want to have the experience and try the things that people haven't tried. Like that is, like we just said, experience is a great teacher. So it teaches you a lot about the world when you do that, and a lot about yourself. And it makes for a great story. All right, I have an honorable mention on
Oh, okay.
things about life. So the ratio of luck and risk and how to make decisions. So outcome bias. This is like if you thought really hard and long about a decision and you went by the rationale and like this was truly the best decision, but the outcome didn't work out in your favor, that doesn't mean that it was a bad decision, right? It just meant that the luck wasn't in your favor that time. Um, so I heard this about Bill Gates. I thought this was like the perfect thing to put it in perspective. So this is specifically for the presence of luck. So when he was in high school, he went to one of the only high schools in the world with a computer. Or sorry, America. So he went to one of the only schools with a computer in the Seattle area, where he went to high school. That was about 300 kids. There's what, 300 million people in the United States. So literally 1 in a million odds of him like getting introduced to a computer in high school and then creating $1 trillion company.
That's impressive. I like that framework a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, how many people are in the world right now? Like, is it 7 billion? Something like that. Like, you are one person in a sea of 7 billion people. So just think about those odds and then think about a million other different factors going on. Like, you need luck on your side. Um, and that's the thing. Like, it, don't get discouraged if things don't work out for you right away. Like we just talked about a few minutes ago, like can't lose if you never stop playing the game. And eventually the ball will bounce your way.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, and I fully agree.
Okay. So that's it for this episode. If you've made it this far, leave us a comment in the comment section so we know that you are a 1% fan. Um, and then, Nalia, where can people find you and us on the interwebs?
Yes. So you can find me at Tranalytics on TikTok and Instagram, and you can find me as Transgender Insurance on YouTube. And then on TikTok, it's t.girls.pod. And on Instagram, it's also the same thing.
It is, yes. So We are back from summer break, although we're probably going to go on another summer vacation soon. But it is good to be back with everyone. So until next time, see you later.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.